I'm just trying to find the words to really capture and to give people an example. Just the discriminatory practices. I think it ties back to your earlier question. I think just stereotypes and perceptions of African American males, our lack of knowledge, or, I don't want to get too much into quotas and things that we were brought in because of a need instead of a skill set.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes that happens. Or I've 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 seen it over and over. Like when it comes up, the individuals with the deficits look like me.
Hey, family, welcome to another episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. I am your host, Rodney Butler, and today we have another one of our education series that we will be doing throughout 2024. And today we have on Mr. Chris Taylor, and he is an assistant principal, and I will let them do a little bit more introduction of themselves. We also have Dr. Simon Robinzine, and he is an area superintendent. I usually don't talk about myself or whatever on these episodes as far as, my background. But since it is an education series, I will let you, for those of you who do not know, the followers that don't know, I am a former educator, and I taught in Atlanta Public Schools. I taught here in Douglas County. And so yeah, with that, without further ado, let me allow these great gentlemen to introduce themselves. We will go in alphabetical order, I guess. So, Dr. Robinzine, won't you start?
Yes, I'm Simon Robinzine. I'm glad to be here this evening. This is my 28th year. I'm currently working in Henry County Schools as an assistant superintendent where I serve 12 schools in the Stockbridge area. I've taught for 10 years in DeKalb, Gwinnett school systems. I've served all levels, elementary, middle, and high. So I'm interested in just what we have to say this evening. Looking forward to a great show.
All right, Chris.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Taylor. I'm assistant principal in the DeKalb County School System. This is my 24th year in education. I served 20 years in Clayton County, and this is my 4th year in DeKalb. I love education. I grew up in a small town, so I love helping people, and I love, just like our grandparents did with us, be around the young people.
Yes, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that what you are seeing on your device right now is kind of an anomaly. If memory serves me correctly, gentlemen, I think black men in America are less than 1% of the public school teaching population. Am I right about that, or close to it?
I think that's a good approximation. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you got three of us. Well, I'm former, but you got three of us, and it is a very it's a very rare thing. So, with that being said, gentlemen, let's get down to these topics that we're going to discuss tonight. I'm going to start with some representation and recruitment. And ladies and gentlemen, all of our categories or topics are very kind of specific to black men. Some of them not so much. So that being said, we're going to talk, like I said, representation and recruitment, and we're going to start with underrepresentation. Black male teachers are often underrepresented in Georgia's public schools, leading to a lack of diverse roles and diverse role models for students. Gentlemen, whoever want to start, pick up on that.
Well, I think that's a very true statement. We are underrepresented in schools when we speak specifically about black males. And I guess really when you begin to look at, the recruitment efforts, a lot of times, even starting off, even financially, a lot of times individuals feel as if they don't come into teaching because maybe the starting pay isn't that much. We hear about, Chris and myself, as you, Rod, Chris 24, myself 28 years, just we came in with salaries. So really, you have to find brothers who probably been connected in. Like my mother was a teacher, so I came in knowing what the education field or what schools look like, and just really, I remember a conversation I had with a gentleman in college. He said, where your heart is, or where your treasure rests, then things will follow. So meaning, if you put your time in, the money will follow. But then also, I don't think the recruitment efforts are as strong for black men to try to just go in. And also, I think another stat, our pre-service programs are only graduating less than 100 graduates, and that's even, and out of those graduates, that's even fewer. I mean, the black men may only represent even a smaller percentage of that.
Yeah, I agree. When I was in college, the reason I got into education because I was a coach. I love playing baseball. I wanted to help the young men, make it to the next level. So that's why I pursued education. I fell in love with it. I taught all levels except for middle. I did high school, college. So I just love elementary. I did that for 14 years, as a matter of fact. So I love the babies, because I can, I feel like I can influence them more. And a lot of them come from single family households, so they don't have that positive male role model, especially black role model. So that's kind of what helped me pursue it and stay in it as long as I have.
Okay, great. And I won't delve into all the topics that we're talking about tonight because you guys are more up on the current stuff. I've been out of teaching now since 2019, I believe. And so, yep. And so, but yeah, same kind of story. Like you said, Saman, it's, got, educators in my family. And so, my first career was military. So after I retired from the military, teaching was my second career, which in the military, you often have second careers because you're so young when you retire. So, but anyway, I knew that education would be mine, would be my second career. I mainly taught special education. I was certified in middle grades math, middle grades ELA, and something else I can't even remember. But anyway, I primarily taught special education. So grades 3 through 5. So, okay. Saman, you kind of brought it up a little bit. Next, we're going to go into recruitment and retention. And attracting and retaining black male teachers can be challenging due to various factors, including workplace climate and support systems. I want you guys to talk about that a little bit, about, attracting and retaining black male teachers and the workplace climate.
Oh, I think that's a great question, Rod. I really think a lot of times, too, as we talk specifics about black males, and I don't know how you all feel, I think that we can get pigeonholed into a stereotype, into a place of quote unquote not knowing instruction. We're looked at a lot of times as the disciplinarians and not really getting exposed to opportunities to really get our hands on the curriculum. And through my experience, a lot of times to move up, you have to have the knowledge of get exposed to the curriculum aspect. And sometimes I think the recruitment aspect, we're not, due to some stereotypes, I think males are not being pulled in, because if they are, a lot of times they're being brought in to discipline kids or to carry out what we call quote unquote operational tasks within the school building.
Yeah, I agree 100% because I was always sought to as a disciplinary. So it kind of hindered me with the instructional piece because I didn't have enough time to stay in the classroom as much. So that kind of, hindered me from developing that instructional background stronger. So disciplinary, yeah, I can handle my classes and I can teach other people to, learn how to run their classes the correct way. Because without discipline, you can't run a class anyway. No learning is going to take place. So like you said, that stereotype and not getting a chance. Because, education is overly populated females. So it's hard.
Yeah, definitely. It's I have not met a black male public school educator who has not said exactly what you guys are saying today, which is that you become the defunct or the the disciplinarian for the for the school, for the school or your grade level or whatever, and you know, and to me, it's and I did, and same thing happened with me. Couldn't do it so much with me because special educators, you have to leave us alone. We really can't do anything, if we pushed it. But I didn't have any problem doing it. But yeah, it was a little, like you said, Chris. Like I said in the opening, right? I came from a male-dominated profession, the military, the Army specifically, to a female-dominated profession. So, surprisingly, though, I had no issues transitioning to that. I don't understand, but I didn't have any problems. But yeah, then you tag along that, word get out that, oh, he's a retired military guy, and you got, and it's just like, whoa, man, you just like everything. So, but yeah, so and again, Saman, you hit it in, you talked about it a little bit in your answer, which I think is going to be the theme tonight. Usually, Saman, when I have somebody do that, when I have somebody on and they kind of they always they start out segueing into the next thing. It's like they go the whole show doing it. So
Okay.
so I wouldn't be surprised if you go the entire show segueing into the next thing.
Okay.
But it's cool because but workplace climate, you hit that a little bit, and we're going to talk about discrimination and bias. Black male teachers may face racial discrimination and bias from colleagues, administrators, and students and parents. How true of a statement is that, gentlemen?
I'm gonna let Chris start on this one. So
Okay.
I mean, that is true. Especially depends if you work in a diverse school. I've done both, but when it become in a predominantly black, it's still the same, but not as much because discrimination is real, and that old saying, talking about people behind their back not wanting them to, reach that next level, and I think that's a problem in our community, as a black community, dealing with that. I mean, I had that throughout my career. If we don't want to help each other seed and see each other seed. So, that's where I come from, and it's painful, but it's true. And I don't care if you're a predominantly black school, you're going to receive it from your own people.
Saman, before you jump in, if you don't mind, you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you could let the audience know, Chris, at your school where you are the assistant principal, is it primarily minority, African American? Okay, you're African American. Saman, the schools that you oversee as far as area superintendent, are they primarily African American or?
yeah, I serve a predominantly African American population, so definitely that. Yes.
Okay, I just want the audience to have a reference point as to where we're coming from, and I taught, except when I taught in Douglas County, but in Atlanta Public Schools where I primarily taught all but a year and a half, I taught in 99.9% African American school as well. So in Atlanta Public Schools. Okay, Simon, go ahead on with your part of that.
Well, yeah, I work in the district, so I think that's a great question. Definitely a resounding yes. I'm just trying to find the words to really capture and to give people an example. Just the discriminatory practices. I think it ties back to your earlier question. I think just stereotypes and perceptions of African American males, our lack of knowledge, or I don't want to get too much into quotas and things that we were brought in because of a need instead of a skill set. And sometimes that happens. I've seen it over and over. Like when it comes up, the individuals with the deficits look like me. And I've been in there, and I know that, and I speak honestly, we're not lesser. We're skilled and better because we got to fight and scratch climbing for everything we get. And I mean, if anyone can counter, I would counter back. But I know the discrimination is real, the stereotypes are real, and so when we get in, it's just a whole nother thing. We have to prove ourselves, in my opinion, 110 times more.
Absolutely.
Over and
Absolutely.
over again. You have to prove that you can do the job.
Yeah.
Yes,
And keep it. If I come in late, somebody else may be late, but first time you late, hey, it's a problem, or just the different things, or like you said, the coach, and I know we keep saying it's instructional thing, but it's always tied to it that we don't know the classroom like other individuals are. That there's a possible laziness or work ethic or just how sometimes we get stereotyped into this. I don't want to say job or want to be cool role that brothers not really coming in about handling business. And then I think Chris hit a good point too. And I'm gonna be very transparent. I started in the school system where what's the saying? All your skin folk ain't kin folk. I really believe that as well. So sometimes the brothers, if they get theirs, I got mine, but I'm not gonna pull you up as well. It's not each one teaching one.
Yeah, and I go back to you might hear a lot of country sayings come from me, but the crab in the barrel syndrome, man.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of my colleagues about that. Help each other. I mean, I'm always there to help because somebody had to help me, so I don't mind sharing the wealth, so to speak.
Yeah, and look, sometimes, I mean, again, this is the Black Man's Roundtable,
Right.
So I want you guys to be, as honest as you can. But I also understand that you guys represent, a whole lot more people than 30 kids in the classroom,
Right.
and stuff like that because of your positions. And Saman, I'm glad you reminded the audience or let the audience know that you work at the district. So you got somebody that's working, in the schoolhouse. In the building, who gets to oversee the entire building with Chris, and you have someone working up at the district, and myself, work directly in the classroom. So you have an abundance of experience here. Look, here's the bottom line. With some of the things that you guys were saying, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have some people just want to be the token Negro. Point blank. Point blank. They just want to be. And then, but then look, I've seen it to where, like you said, because we're talking about right now, we're talking about professional isolation, but I've also seen it to where, not only do you have that in another male brother who's an educator, that token Negro thing, but with sometimes with our female counterparts who are just as melanated as us. Sometimes they don't quite understand, some of the things that go along with being a man. Here we all know that we're in an environment, we're in a place in America, in the African American community where so many people are brought up without males in the home, or you don't even have to have males in the home, but a lot of times, sometimes with that male influence, and so sometimes the female teachers just cannot understand like where that man is coming from, because and we know that a lot of, I don't know the statistics, but in my at least anecdotal experience is that a lot of educators, teachers, female teachers are single, right? Because it's hard work. I think it's hard to stay, married to, a female educator. I happen to be, married to one, but that's not what she started out. She was a military spouse for almost all her adult life, So she's a little bit different. So I can't count her in those numbers, but yeah. So I think you guys made some great points, and if anybody want to add to anything before we move on to career advancement, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I just want to. I think that was a great question because it's really, really, tough. You talk about that isolation. I think that is so honest. I mean, I served in a principal role. The job alone is lonely at the district because a lot of times you're misunderstood, and then a lot of times you can't really express. You don't have a lot of people you can express who you are. I mean, you have to get into that work role, and a lot of times with that. So I think that's a great point that you brought up, just to highlight that isolation for our brothers who are serving in these positions, administrative, on the school level, on the district level. And I think, sometimes to offer an antidote to it is just that we have to, I really stay on this authentic thing. I think you got to bring your authentic self. You can't fake yourself, So, and I think when we really bring more to the table at work when we're bringing who we really are instead of shying away from who we are.
Yeah, and you saying that because I grew up with both of my parents,
Yeah.
and being as a female dominant field, when they see a strong man coming out, a black man, I'm an alpha male. I'm sorry. That's how I'm gonna
Don't
come in.
apologize for it, brother. Please don't
I'm sorry.
apologize for it.
That's me.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I'm gonna represent myself, my family, because I'm a leader. I'm the oldest out of 3 boys, so I grew up like that. So I'm gonna lead. I'm a man. I'm gonna lead by example. I practice what I preach, and I don't back down from it.
Yeah, and so and you guys are absolutely right. And like I said, I came from a predominant male career to a predominant female. I did not have any problems transitioning. Maybe because my household is I have two girls, and and my wife, and so I'm used to. Even though I was in the military, but I'm very around just about all men, because I was, my job required me to be around mostly men or either all men. And so, but I didn't have any issues, but like kind of what you alluded to, Chris, they had a lot of the females. I personally didn't have any issues, with any of the other black men in my school where I was in Atlanta Public Schools. And for elementary school, we had, I think at tops, at the max, we had like 12 black men in an elementary school. That is unheard of, but that's kind of what we had. And we all kind of meshed and got along with each other. But we did have some problems. Like I said, I didn't have any problems transitioning from a male-dominated profession to a female-dominated profession. But they definitely had a problem adjusting to, like you said, Chris, this kind of alpha male, or they saw it as aggression. They saw it as, and all this kind of stuff whereas when I've seen, even amongst our people, where what is called aggression in us as black men, even in the school place, it's called a passion with white men. So so I feel you on that, brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for you, I think because you was, especially you kind of isolated as well, so you're not roaming the building as much.
Yeah, but I even when I taught interrelated, which interrelated, you're all over the place, right? You're teaching, your team teaching basically with other with the general ed teachers. I definitely got around, and but like you're saying, most of the time, like my very last year teaching, I taught autism, high functional autism, and so I was kind of really isolated then. But I actually loved that, so I didn't have to see nobody for the most part, and so but except for my kids, but kind of what my students, kind of like what Saman said though too, is that you're isolated, and that's what we're moving into that, but we already kind of covered it. But you're isolated, and what parents and what the public got to also understand is that, look, in teaching, you are around. Here you are. Usually, you have you got to have at least a bachelor's degree in order to teach in the state of Georgia. But most teachers, I don't know if most teachers, but many teachers, at least every educator on this platform right now today, has an advanced degree. But yet you're around 7-year-olds, 9-year-olds, all day long, and even 16-year-olds, and you like Saman saying, sometimes you don't have, that, like at another workplace, you can pull somebody to the side, in the cafeteria or whatever, and you kind of talk to them. Well, you're in the cafeteria, you got your kids, you're never, I don't know how this is going to sound, but since but look, one job that I definitely say that transitions from being a teacher is almost kind of like being some kind of guard or something, because you're isolated in this room all day, and then not you two guys, but you've been there.
Right.
And you know what I'm talking about. You know how that feels. And then, when you're outside that room, man, you got to keep your eye on those kids. So you don't have. So I just want people to know it's so much different than a regular job, than your average job.
Supervision.
Yes, the supervision is a constant thing, So But the next one was professional isolation, and the way I got it worded is being one of a few black male teachers in a predominantly white staff can lead to feeling of isolation and lack of support. Well, since none of you guys or none of us are in that situation with the predominantly white, we already hit on all the other things where we are the minority. So and in this case, is the black male teacher is always the minority, no matter what the situation is. Unless it's all boys school with all male staff or something like that. So we're going to go right into career advancement, and you guys are in a place where you can really talk about this versus teachers who have not had an opportunity to have been administrators. So the way I have this one is black male teachers may encounter barriers to career advancement and leadership positions within the education system. What are some of those barriers, gentlemen?
Oh, wow. For me, it was, but it's about who you know in education. If you know the right person, you can get a job. Because I've had people get jobs that I felt I was more qualified for, but they knew the right people. It's about who you know. And that's what my experience is. And it's hard to move up or advance if you're not making those connections, so-called politicking.
I think that's a great response. I think it all comes full circle what we talked about. Those are a lot of the barriers. I think this thing I keep bringing up about perception of us not really being skilled at the craft of teaching and knowing quality instruction. That's a barrier, because when you go into an interview, a lot of times, I think, like you all said, you're speaking to an audience that may not have any males. So you really have to be able to connect with a different audience in the interviews. And also, I think just through the teaching, coming up through the ranks, a lot of times the mentoring isn't there. Or if the district isn't really offering a leadership development program or creating a pipeline for being Pacific to wrap around our young black male teachers to help develop them and retain them and train them on how to go up, So, and I'm looking on the other end, because I know we talk about the classroom, but on the district end, really being able to make our young black male teachers feel valued. And I think also a barrier for our teachers is really them not being hopeful, right? So they see, like Chris said, I keep getting passed over, but nobody's telling me why, and because nobody gonna say, hey, nepotism, you don't know nobody, and this is a story, and I won't hold you too long, but
no, go ahead, man, you good.
Good. So when I was teaching, ironically, I started teaching special ed too, right? So I'm a special educator. I taught elementary, middle, and high, and this was years before my wife Monique has really helped me, So I was about 24, 25. And so I had a conversation with a principal. So kind of what Chris was talking about, they were giving me duties. And I said, okay, I'll take them on. I'm an aspiring administrator, right? And so I saw a position came available, and I got looked over. And one day the secretary brought me some papers, and I hadn't matured as much as I am now. I said, no, you give it back to him. Her eyes look like silver dollars. And Chris know what I'm talking about. I already knew they were gonna come evaluate me. Come on, cause you know how it goes. So they called me. They called me to the office. We had a great conversation that really helped propel my career. The brother said, to Chris's point, man, don't you know this about who you know? I said, brother, it's about merit. He said, you think this about merit? I said, you think what you want to think, and then I'm gonna think what I want to think, because I don't believe in owing people. I believe in hard work. So I believe you got to take the philosophy. You're gonna take either road. But when you get there, I just believe that who you know, sometimes the rubber don't meet the pavement. Because to make it full circle, when we get there, the spotlight and the stage we're on, we're not going to get the pass. So we got to know stuff to once we get there to sustain it as well.
Exactly. And pull other people up.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Like I said, teach one. Yeah, you have to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing. I got a lot of inspired administrators in my building, and they come ask me questions. I try to give them different duties, get that experience. And like, I was given, and you got to pass the buck.
Yeah.
And look, gentlemen, when you get an opportunity, during this conversation, during this discussion, feel free to, if you think that there's something, a tidbit or whatever that you may want to give, teachers, then give it to them like you guys just did. Because what I can tell you is that there are going to be the parents, they are not interested in any of that stuff y'all just said, but for all of those educators
Yeah,
that's watching,
yeah,
they are
yeah,
they are very
yeah.
interested in that, and there's going to be a lot of educators watching. So I'm not saying we're going to make got to make it a professional development, but yeah, definitely squeak, because hey, principals, former principals, oh yeah, y'all can make a PD out of anything. So
Right,
we ain't gonna make the Black Man's Roundtable a professional development, but
right.
definitely throw those little
Yeah,
things at them when you guys
that's funny.
when you guys see fit.
Yeah.
One of the things as far as that is concerned, one of the things that really kind of surprised me, again, coming from the military to come into teaching, was that having, what was strange to me was having your direct hire, your direct boss, to have so much influence on your on your progression, on your advancement. And what I mean by that, like in the military, right? So and I think this is way throughout the military, but definitely in the Army. The Army is where I come from, but I believe all branches are pretty much this way. Your direct hire, your direct supervisor, the person directly over you, yes, they are your supervisor. They do they do evaluate you, but but who really holds the weight on your advancement, your promotion, and all that stuff is the person that's over that person. So your person that's 2 levels up, because and that works so well. And then you always have a third person as well that kind of oversees, to make sure that 2 people kind of agree and say the same, or saying the same thing. One ain't saying this and one ain't saying that, or else he or she sends them to the back to the room and say, go start it over. Y'all go work it out or something, or whatever, but come back with some agreement. But and I just think that that's such a better system, and that's a system that I was under so long, and it always made so much sense to me. But I've seen to where I would not want to have almost total control over someone's career if I see them every single day, right? I see every mistake they make. I see every, just everything, even with your children. Sometimes you'd rather get an outside, person to kind of say, hey, it's not as bad as you think. But anyway, that was something that was strange to me. And I saw where principals really had the wrong idea of a student, of a teacher. But I've also seen it where they've hit it right on the head. But most of the time, I tell you, well, I don't know if it's most of the time, but I would say way too many times they've had it wrong about a teacher. Because personal things, feelings and stuff get in. Like I said, you see somebody every day. But anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents on that. As far as that. Okay, let's see. All right, mentorship. All right, gonna hit on that a little bit while we're under career advancement. There is often a lack of mentorship and professional development opportunities tailored to the needs to the needs and experience of Black male educators. I know that both you guys already believe that is true, because you kind of already hit on it. Is there any other kind of thing that you want to say about the lack of mentorship for Black male teachers before we move on to cultural competence and curriculum?
I kind of piggyback on what Dr. Robinzine stated about the mentorship, and I'm a firm believer that you have to have people to look out for you, but also teach you when you make a mistake. My last principal, if I made a mistake, she got on me, but she told me what I need to do next to improve myself. So that helped me. Then I had principals that said,
and this was and Chris, this was in your position as an assistant principal or a classroom teacher?
Trying to get to become an assistant principal.
Okay.
Mentorship, yeah. So,
Gotcha.
Some principals, they tell you what you did wrong and try to help you. But I had one, it was a female, called me in the office and said, what makes you a good leader? First thing came to my mind, I lead by example. I'm a man of my words. All my interviews, I say I'm going to do it, I did. Most interviewing Dr. Robinson say, how you going to get to know your staff? And I told him I was going to go to each room, introduce myself, talk to them, get to know them. And I did that. And I'm going to keep doing that till I retire. 7 more years, baby. 7 more years.
7 more years. Yeah, I think that's a great point too, and I think the informal mentoring amongst men, I think that's what we don't really talk about. I know when I was named principal, I was a principal in 2013, and I got a couple of calls from some of the other brothers who gone before me, and just say, "Hey man, congratulations. Here's some tips. This is what you need to do to stay above board and continue." And then we looking out for you. So I think the informal mentoring that takes place too. I think Chris even talked about it. Like we got to look out for one another. When we see we talking about the numbers here, then so that means we got to work to increase them. Just informally, like, hey, bro, this is what you need to do. If you need me, call me. When you get those isolated moments, man, pick the phone up. I just hold it. If you need to just scream or say whatever, some explicit, whatever you need to say. But man, I got the phone so you can get back in there and do what you need to do.
Yeah, and I had a former principal. He's now superintendent Macon.
Okay.
He came to my house. I had my retreat here. He spoke to my teachers and everything. He said, "Man, you gotta keep doing it because it's never been done." And he said, "Anytime you need me, call me. And anytime I call him, he's there."
That's it.
So you gotta have that, like you say, informal. That formal. That's the main thing. Cause district level, they'll let those people feel more comfortable and have that confidence.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And so, we've talked about representation and recruitment. We've talked about workplace climate, and we talked about career advancement. And so, before we move on to the next topic, those three topics really, I know that there are going to be a few prospective black male teachers who's watching this. And so what I want for them to know with those first three topics that we hit on, those categories of topics, look, the water is warm, man. It is warm. Come on in. We need you. But however, this is the Black Man's Roundtable. We keeping it real. You would rather to hear it from three black male educators, and former educator myself, then now before you ever get there or before you even start on that trek to becoming an educator, but don't let it scare you away. We're just telling you the truth, and really, things could be so much worse. Things could be so much worse, but to be this kind of minority, like I said, if I got the numbers correctly, we are less than 1% of the, and I know people get crazy with that because we're all in Metro Atlanta, and well, it's Black Mecca, so it's like, well, and it's like I used to tell my kids. They used to think everybody was in the military. I'm like, no, it's only like 3% of the population that's active duty military. But for them, that's their world. That's what they see everywhere they go. That's what they saw, being in uniform. So so I got it. But no, I'm letting you know, people, that again, double check me on it. But I think it's less than 1%. Even if it was 5%, that is crazy small, right? But it's not that. I know it's not that for sure. And to be able to, so brother, if you want to come into education, come on in. Like I said, the water is warm because generally we stick together for the most part, but you're always going to have, these few brothers, no matter what job you go into, you're going to have these few brothers that, that just want to, be that token person. So,
Rodney,
so
what you were saying, I decided to Google that. It's 1.3%.
Okay, so
That was in 2021.
As of 2021, 1.3%.
Wow,
Yeah. So
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So it's very. I mean, that is it. That is it. Very. And for us to be able to operate in that environment at 1%, it just goes to show you how strong black men truly are. I don't think anyone else can survive. In America, working under those conditions. And I say that because, of course the numbers are very few, more than 1% of females, for instance, in the Army, right? The Army and Marine Corps got the fewest females because, well, it's more physical and, you boots on the ground kind of thing versus, like the Air Force and the Navy and the Coast Guard, now even the Space Force. But with that being said, I saw so many female, or at least heard about or saw, as I got to the higher levels, of rank, I saw so many of them burn out, man. And look, and you hitting that 30, like 20 something percent, but they just like, oh, I can't take this. So for us to be able to operate and function usually above what duty calls, like you said, they want us to be the disciplinary and everybody else in the building, and we're operating at 1.1%. Come on, man. Nobody else is. I'm not saying we're comfortable. Well, I don't know if I'm not saying we're comfortable with it, but I guess we're just used to it and we just know what we got to do. Yeah. Appreciate you looking that up. I don't have my other computer on today. So, cultural, we're going to talk a little bit about cultural competence and curriculum. And we're going to talk a little bit about culturally relevant teaching. Black male teachers may struggle to implement culturally relevant pedagogy in schools that do not prioritize or support it. Gentlemen, can I get an amen on that one?
Yes, sir.
Anybody want to start off on that one? You know what? I can start off on that one. I'll start off on that one. Okay. So, with testing, which I think we're going to hit a little bit. Let me see. We're going to hit a little bit about, the cultural bias in testing. So I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit, but when we're talking about implementing cultural relevance, so if I remember looking at some of the standardized testing, right? So here's my thing, and I want for the parents to understand this, and I want you to understand why so many of the the SAT stuff and the ACT stuff is going out of the window, and even some of the standardized testing in elementary school. I found out, this ain't what I was about to talk about. I'm about to talk about, but I found out, I learned, about a couple of months ago, that in Japan, it was something. Oh God, it just slipped my mind. They don't start testing until like the 5th grade. Like they never take a test until like the 5th grade. They concentrate on, those kids have to come. There's no janitors and I wanted to get stationed in Japan. I wanted to get stationed in Okinawa while I was in the military and never got it. But they have to. When we talk about cultural, right? There's no janitors and stuff like that in the building. They have to clean up behind themselves. They have to do everything. They have to do all that stuff, and they get a lot of free play. You learn so much. We know from being educators, and for those that have kids, that free play is, you learn the most in free play almost in any time in your life. And so I say that to say this, as far as cultural, so you got this question on going back to the SAT, ACT thing, parents. You have this question, and it says, well, Mike spent 3 minutes in the lavatory, right? And then he came out and something else happened, and there's some more math to do, right? But the key word is lavatory. We know that the children that we teach, the students that we teach in the areas where we teach in Atlanta and Metro Atlanta, the most they'll ever probably get as far as being on an airplane, which is the bathroom on an airplane, is called lavatory, right? And so is looking overhead and seeing low-flying aircraft coming over their house or apartment because, they live close to the airport or whatever. So automatically the whole sentence, because not culturally, but because of economically and some disadvantaged things, he or she is like, what is a lavatory, right? So I just wanted to say, let the parents know it can be things like that, your kid, and it works the other way around, that your student just won't be able to understand when it come down to taking some of these standardized tests and stuff like that. Now, like I said, we will get into it, but at the end of the day, we know that that language is going to be skewed, to our non-melanated brothers and sisters, students out there. But yes, gentlemen, culturally relevant teaching.
Yeah, I think, back in the day we took the ITBS.
Mm-hmm.
That's an owl. They may say something different and it means something different down here in South Georgia. So with that cultural bias being in there, the test is not going to be geared towards that particular student because, like you just said, laboratory, they didn't know what that means. They thinking about it as a lab you do your experiments in. So.
Exactly. And the key word in the Iowa the ITBS, the key word in that one is Iowa. Come on now.
Exactly. Why are we taking it in Georgia?
The whole country is taking the test. Not the whole country, but much of the country is taking the whole test that's based on some Iowa stuff. Come on now. Go ahead, Doc.
So yeah, man, that's really, I mean, that's a really real thing, you know. And I just think about my own experiences growing up. I went to school in Ben Hill, so went to Atlanta Public Schools coming up, and I think it's a huge disconnect because, like you said, that was a great example. With if kids don't have that vocabulary or exposure to literature early on, you know, that has representation of them, then you do begin. I think you stretch to even place of inferiority as well, you know. So I believe that just the cultural relevant curriculum is so important that we see ourselves in what we're learning because earlier, learning is absorbed. We learn more the younger, what probably like our kindergartners learn so much more as they're coming in, first graders. So the more you see yourself represented in the curriculum and the more you learn about your history, the prouder you are, or you begin to really, your esteem grows. So, I also think you hook kids earlier on if they're beginning to learn about their history. So, and then you disconnect if you're not learning or what you do learning is subservient. So I think that's a really, really powerful. It's a good question. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And gentlemen, I'm hoping that those parents who watches this episode, I'm hoping that we giving them some tools for their tool bag to go and fight and talk to their school board, go to these school board meetings, and so I'm hoping that we giving them something tonight, especially when we're talking about, specifically to our black children. Even though this is, I want to focus it on the black male teachers or educators, administrators, educators, the whole 9 yards. But I know that if I would have focused this on the students, on black students, you guys wouldn't have said nothing about your own struggle. It's just the way that teachers are in general, and the way that black male teachers are specifically. You would have just focused on nothing but the kids and wouldn't have said nothing. But I think that it is about time for somebody to hear, even though we are 1.1% of the population, and 1% probably come from right here in Atlanta. No, I'm just kidding. But, and spread everywhere else. But on the serious tip, I think that black male teachers, they today the most abused word I ever hear in the English language, at least in America, English, is hero. Everybody's a hero. They call everybody a hero. Let me tell you something, man. Like I said, like you said, Chris, 1.1%. You're looking at your heroes right here, people. You're looking at your heroes in these two gentlemen. So stop calling everybody a hero, because I promise you, just think about operating in your current environment. And I'm talking about your entire situation, not just your office, but the people up at headquarters or whatever is called a corporate. I mean, okay, the military came out of me for a little bit right there, but working up at corporate or whatever. Look, all those people, your entire organization structure, where you are, if you are 1.1% of that, then. And I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, or whatever. If you're 1.1% of that, then you kind of know what these two men are talking about. And not only that, you probably know what it is to call somebody a hero for real. So, okay, curriculum bias. And again, we are still under cultural competence and curriculum. The curriculum may lack representation of black history and contributions, making it difficult for black male teachers to connect with students on cultural grounds. Now, I think you all may have heard that the AP. I know you guys know exactly what I'm about to say. The AP Black History. Yeah, the secretary, not the secretary of state, but the state superintendent. Kind of nixed that, right? And I heard that that it came back and now it's gone again or whatever. I'm not sure. If you guys want to opine on that, you can, but you don't have to. But I just want people to know, even if it came back, what I heard today is it's gone. It's gone now, or at least it's the budget or the monies are cut so low to where it may as well be gone. But when we talk about the culture, the curriculum, and the representation in Black history and contributions, please feel free to talk about anything you want. But I definitely don't want to get away from this without talking about pulling Black books. No, has that happened? Is that happening all over Georgia? No. Is it happening in places in Georgia? Absolutely. But gentlemen, jump in there.
Well, we have that African American study because I'm over AP tested, so we have that class, and I heard it, but I didn't. I was in disbelief because like in some states that are trying to take Black history out of the curriculum, and it's sad. We're in 2024, and this is going on, man. It's just sad. I'm just speechless.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just pondering over a lot. I mean, you said a whole lot with it. That relevancy in the curriculum still has me kind of pushed back because I was the elementary school principal, and I think we're not talking about the kids like you said, but I think it's as we give parents something, it is so important to instill the love of reading at an early age and putting literature. I think people overcomplicate learning. I mean, just put books in your kids' hands and read them with them. And I mean, my mom would always tell me I love sports. So I would ask her what's in the sports page. So you begin downloading historical Black history in your kids early and they won't stray from it. So, because, I mean, to answer your question, yeah, the state superintendent did pull it. So some schools are coming back, districts, to talk about funding the AP Black history course. But, I think we got to be able to take it even earlier on. There's only like one or two times in the elementary curriculum that I think it's Frederick Douglass and maybe Harriet Tubman is maybe brought up, but we need to make sure that our kids are armed with more because we know there's so much more, so many more. And Dr. King, they definitely learn about Dr. King, but so many more. I think right, you hit a really good point, and then parents got to take that away. It's so much my mind is running because when you talk about the school board getting involved in that, in short, we need the parents to get back involved, because to support the Black teachers and get them back in there, we need the parents to get in there, play that pivotal role in their lives. But to that curriculum piece, yeah, we need to see more representation because, back again, I think kids, the new word, like Ross said about a PD, everything now is about learner engagement. And let's keep it real, kids aren't engaged because it's not engaging.
Absolutely, man.
You talk to me for 8 hours a day for 180 days about nothing I live in. So it's hard for me to, and then you judge me on that. Then you say I'm not learning. So, I mean, we know the game, but we have to beat the game.
Exactly. So, our next topic is student teacher dynamics. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that one. Because since I have two administrators on, I definitely want to get down a little bit to the to resource allocation and to policy and systematic issues. But going back to the student teacher dynamics, we've already kind of hit that up. I was going to ask you guys about the discipline disparities, basically. You being or the advocacy role where you guys, which will be the next one, which you guys when we already talked about at the beginning of them using Black male teachers as the disciplinarian for the entire building and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of hit on that already. And as far as the discipline disparities, I was going to ask you guys talk about the higher disciplinary rates, or that's reported higher disciplinary rates in where Black male teachers are going to usually work, which is in predominantly Black schools. And I would let people know I chose to teach there. I could have taught anywhere, but I chose to teach, in the Southwest Atlanta. That's why I wanted to teach. But with that being said, I do want to talk about. I just want you guys. I want for parents to hear this, especially when we're talking about Black boys, right? We know that they are disproportionately the same way out here in the world. They are disproportionately, disciplined and tagged with behavior issues, than their white counterparts, right? And so that's not really what's here. But since we already hit on the student teacher dynamics from what I have on this paper, I want you guys to talk to the parents as administrators. Talk to someone who works in that district and someone who's a building administrator. Talk to parents that has these young black boys who are students, and the dynamic with them being labeled and with behavior issues and stuff like that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think that's a disproportionate. That's a hot topic. I think that you have to. I think parents have to arm themselves, and educate it on if your child is being suspended. Building that partnership with the school. I think finding somebody in the school you can trust and be able to, I guess really look closely at what's going on, and to see look into the practices. I think the simplest piece would hopefully parents can find somebody in the building they trust. And I think I would like to offer up that the school's intent is to bridge the gap with the community. So to go in with good intent and to listen, because Chris and I both been administrators, and you don't aim to suspend kids like that. And if there's something going on that you don't really believe is right, then ask questions. Ask questions. Yep.
Yeah, and you got to, like we said, bridging that gap, talking to them, communicating, because it's a cliche, but I say it all the time. I treat them just like they're my kid, and I tell the parent that they're like, good. So within the last couple of years, I had to do our data today when we talk about discipline and attendance. Our attendance has the discipline's gone down. 200 suspension and out of school and in school, it went down because the restorative practice. I know you know about that, Doc. Restorative practice, you mediating with the kids, talking to them. Because if you can talk, most of my fights misunderstand that. Well, I heard you say this, but you got to talk. Once they talk, they're like, oh, now we dap up and they walk in my office. And that gap got to be bridged with the teachers, the administration, and the parents.
And involvement. I think that the more you are involved, then the less likely your student is going to get suspended or have to come and see one of these guys. And right. So at least for disciplinary reasons, see one of these guys. But and Saman, you said that when you started out in special education, and being that that's mostly what I did. So special education is a little bit different because you have to get intimately involved, almost intimately involved with the parents, right? Because you're Definitely. More than just an educator. You are a caseload manager. You are everybody in the community. The psychiatrists, the psychologists. The whole community, because you have to deal with that. But what happens is just about all of the disciplinary issues with children with disabilities, students with disabilities are basically their disability. You know what I'm saying? Because the family very, very well. You know so much about that student that you can't tell nobody else, not even their general education teacher or their, you can't tell nobody in the building, because, and so I think, so I'm not, of course, general education teachers don't have that reason to get that intimate with their family, the entire family for their student. But, but look at the special educator and see how, when it's time for, teacher appreciation week, right? The special education teacher, if they got quite a bit of students, the room is full of stuff because the family, the family very, very well. So I think that would bode well if teachers, if general education teachers could, get involved like that, and then it makes the parent want to get involved, with you and with the school, and that lessens, disciplinary issues. So, but look, gentlemen, like I said, I've got some administrators on today, so I want to get off into what we had 58 minutes or so in. I want to get off into some resource allocations. You don't have to spend a bunch of time because I got 2 categories. I want to hit them both before we get out of here, which basically brings me to 4 topics. Funding inequalities. Schools with higher percentages of black students are often underfunded, leading to resource constraints that impact teaching and learning conditions. Okay, I know you know both that is a true statement. What say you on it?
Well, I definitely agree. I think that that's a real big thing, and I think the word really could land on inequity, right? We talk about inequities a lot in education, but then it's who's holding that definition and who's going to act on it, right? So I think that's very true. It talks to your 1.3%. I mean, that's just male, but in the old schools, not only do you not have black male teachers, you a lot of times don't have the most skilled teachers. So, and that's the most valuable resource a student can have is the best teacher in front of them. So I think that's a real thing in our um, higher poverty schools that resource a lot of times is lacking. So, and I think that's the biggest one that you need because to level the playing field, you have to put the best teacher you can in front of our kids.
And Chris, before you opine on that one, Chris, I want you to hit on the next one since we're getting close to that 60 minutes. I want for you to hit on the support services that I want to talk about, and then we'll move on to policy and systematic issues. But Saman, what I want to say to you is I think you hit it on the head, man, with equity. I tell anybody. I'll tell anybody in a heartbeat. I've said on the Black Man's Roundtable, and those who follow the Black Man's Roundtable know that I'm one that you can keep your equality, and people confuse those things.
They do.
You can keep your equality. Give me equity. You know what I'm saying? Equity is a math problem. Equality is what's in your heart and what your mind sees. I don't really care what your mind sees. Like, well, that's equal. That's equal. No, how about equity though, right? So I'm with you on that 100%. Chris, we're going to go into support services under resource allocations. Limited access to support services such as counseling and special education can affect overall educational environment. I just want you to hit Chris real quick on just that limited access, and when we're talking about how important counseling and special education services are, to the students.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question, but it's for those wraparound services, COVID kind of, everybody saw how COVID affected the students, so mentally they're not going to learn anything if they're not mentally helped. With the MTSS, having support, the PBIS program, counselors, you have to have that. And if you don't have funding and school social worker to support those kids, they're not going to learn anything. But they're dealing with stuff that we can't even comprehend at a younger age. They got adult problems at a young age, and if they're worried about the lights being off and helping their mom, they're not going to be worried about 2 plus 2.
And you know what, Chris?
Support that.
Absolutely. And you know what, brother? When it come down to counseling, and this is I'm talking about with the students and with the educators. We hear about anything, happening, and I'm not talking about these mass shootings in schools, but anything happening in a school that's predominantly white, they're going to shut that school down the next day, probably for 3 or 4 days. You have kids that go to school where we all teach or oversee, and it's common to hear about one of these students, friends died or got killed or whatever. Now I know it's getting better, but it took a long time for it to get better for services to come in, for those students, and but not only that, also for the educators, and that doesn't happen in schools that you guys teach in or administrators in or oversee. That doesn't happen quite the same way, as it does with the north side, for instance, of Atlanta Public Schools and some of our other schools. We're going to move into, and Saman, I know you wanted to hit on that, but we're going to go ahead on and move into policy and systematic issues, because my next educator roundtable, I'm going to have on pretty much all, I believe, um, classroom teachers, and they might not be able to get to this kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
which is the last topic, and we're going to talk about standardized testing real quick and some policy influence. We already kind of hit on standardized testing, but if you want to add to it, both you can definitely add to it. High stakes testing can be disproportionately affect schools with higher populations of black students, adding pressure on the teachers. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to kind of, if you're going to say anything on this one, stick real close to that, how these high stake testing, how it really affects the educators.
Well, I guess definitely a concrete example was APS back in about what was that '09, and
Yes,
That's what I
so
was gonna say. I was gonna say.
yeah, so I think it puts added stress on the teacher, the demands to make gains or to meet, what the goals and objectives of the school are. So I think it's just it creates an environment where teachers really can't really be as creative. So they feel like their confines around teachers. And I've even heard teachers say like they want to teach, I'm not really teaching, I'm teaching to the test. So I think it really limits them or gives a skewed view for our new teachers coming in of what they thought teaching was about.
Yeah, I concur. Because you add that added pressure, it becomes a corporation. Just like those big businesses, they get bonuses. Most
Yes,
sales,
sir.
or education got treated like that. So those teachers felt that pressure, and what they say, pressure bust pipe. That's what happened.
Yep.
And they did what they had to do to get that money.
And pay to play should never exist in any kind of academic or educational structure, never. And so I'm glad that that's pretty much gone. Last one is policy influence, again on the policy and systematic issues. Black teachers may feel that they have limited influence over educational policies that directly impact their work and their students. Okay, straight up educational policy. So I think you guys are uniquely, especially you in this one, Simon, Dr. Robinzine, you're definitely in a place where you can really hit on this. Not to say, Chris, feel free, but yeah, the influence over educational, black teachers feeling that they have limited influence over educational policies that directly impact their students. What say you about that, Simon?
Man, this could have been a whole episode.
I know, right? It's like almost each one of these things can be a whole episode.
Because I think, in layman's term, or to make it simple, this is the undergird or this is the constraint, right? So that people don't see. So, people argue it, but they don't argue in the policy creation about, like you talked about, curriculum, about, just even about how kids are served. So the policy sometimes policy hadn't always been our friend as we talk about, African Americans. And so we know that because it brings in a confine. And I think the takeaway here, sometimes the constructs that we're not included in, but we're limited to. So you have to be really careful when policies are written. They're not always written to be inclusive. So I think Rod talked about a little bit earlier, that's where as our community members have to get involved. And when you want to see change, the change happens there with influencing, like when they're creating policies and even budgets and things like that. But making sure that your voice is heard and that you're flooding the places where because the policy is going to drive everything for the district. And that's when people question. And the first thing I say, have you read the policy? So I think people need to be educated. And I think that's why it's a great question, because people don't like to get into policy. Like you're not going at advanced grad classes. Policy is boring, but you're sleeping on what you really need to be awake on. Because the policy is what's going to say, hey, yes or no, or did you read the policy? This is why we have to do this. And some policies could be about attendance. Some policy could be about retention. And so all of these things, I will say to most people, read the policies early. And this is a great time of the year, even if it's a syllabus or something. That's not a policy, but I'm just using that on the ground level to make sure people are informed, because when you're informed, you can make the educated choices and voice your opinion in an educated manner for the changes that you need.
Yeah. And like I said, I know you speak more on that, but if you're not understanding it and it's too long, a lot of people don't like to read those long
No,
parts. If you're not
that's right.
if you use those big word, people are like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
So then they don't feel their voice is being heard, because back, when if people making decisions that are not in the school, how can you make a decision? You don't know how the school runs, so you making a decision based on something that don't even exist anymore. So it causes a problem. So your voice has to be heard. You got to know.
yeah.
Got to be heard. Two takeaways from that I heard from you two gentlemen when it come down to this, policy and systemic issues in the schools. Parents, you got to be a stakeholder, right? Make yourself a stakeholder. And kind of like what Chris talked about at the end, and Simon talked about at the end of when he was finishing up, is the bottom line is, if you're a stakeholder and you force yourself in that, and I'm talking to parents, and I'm also talking to classroom teachers as well.
Yeah.
What happens is, the more of a stake you have, the closer you are to the table, or you're at the table. Because I tell people all the time, if you're not at the table, you might be on the menu. So you wanna get in there. Get in there, force yourself, bring a lawn chair. If they ain't got no chair for you, bring I was want to say bring a folding chair, but Montgomery or Birmingham or whatever. Somebody might start running nowadays. We bring a folding chair, but you put you a chair at that table. You know what I'm saying? But be at it, so that way you know you're not on the menu. So look, gentlemen, I appreciate it. We hit those last few fast and furious because I really wanted to try to keep it as close to 60 minutes as possible. And I wanted to get those two in because, like I said, we probably won't have, we have more classroom kind of teachers on our next education roundtable. But of course, I will be bringing, asking you guys to come back. I think it's a great time for you to be here. It's towards the beginning of the school year for most school districts and stuff like that throughout the state of Georgia. And so I definitely appreciate it. And before we get out of here, Chris, Mr. Chris Taylor, if you want to promote anything, you absolutely can. But I want to definitely have Dr. Robinzine to, hey, shout out your book, man. I had you on the Black Man's Roundtable talking about your book. Talk about your book a little bit, man. Get a little promo in there, brother.
I appreciate it. So I have it right here with me. I have my now that you have the keys.
Look at it. We got it right there.
Serving your first year as a principal. So this is a book, just a leader's guide to really just being successful in your first year as a principal. My consulting company, the Robinzine Group, we're here to help you with all your educational needs. But definitely, you can get the book on Amazon, and just I look forward. Thank you, Rod, for the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely, man.
We're
probably so. Like I said, man, once you in this circle of the Black Man's Roundtable, brother, you in here.
I appreciate it.
We do it every chance we get. Chris, I don't know, you got a book or something, man? I don't know, y'all brothers up there, man. You got anything you want to promote? Anything you want to?
Well, myself, and I'm like for the teachers and the educators out there, promote yourself. Because if nobody else is, you got to do it yourself.
Yep.
And I don't have anything to promote. I mean, I'm an inventor. I have a hidden device. It's called the Ripple Pack. It's on Instagram, because I love
Awesome
training and teaching. It all in the same realm.
Well, I tell you what, brother, hit me up if you need to. And like I said, man, we would use this platform. It ain't called the Black Man's Roundtable for nothing. You know what I'm saying? We invite everybody. We're not afraid of nobody. We'll have anybody on. But like I tell everybody, man, why is it called the Black Man's Roundtable? And I just tell them, brother, we can't afford to keep the black silent. We can't afford to keep the black silent in whatever we name our stuff. We have to let people know that, yes, it's black. But that don't mean you can't come,
That's right.
So that's the way with that.
Gotta be an open forum, man. I have a get-together. Hopefully I get to invite you guys over.
Okay.
BB&C. Brothers Bourbon and Cigar. We get to talk about what we want to talk about.
All right.
Sir. Yes, sir. Make sure we get
That's
that
awesome.
invite out.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So look, again, brothers, I appreciate it, man. And look, and hey, you will see these gentlemen again. I can promise you that. Being a black male educator, I'm so glad that that Chris looked it up for us. It was 2001 stat that he got. He's not quoting this, but he's just read what he read, which is 1.1%. For so long, it was 1.3%. For so long, it was under 1%. So, I don't know. There's people calling themselves all kind of stuff because we know race is a made up construct anyway. We didn't make it up, but maybe there are some people out there. I don't know. But at any rate, it is a very difficult job. These are some of the true heroes that I look at as heroes. I looked at them as heroes before I even went into that profession as my second profession. So look, gentlemen, once again, I appreciate it. And until next time, we will see you in them suites and them streets. Peace.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Enjoy.
Appreciate it. Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.